The Old School is brought to you by Ahart Solutions, which provides school surveys and applied research. More information at ahartsolutions.com.
And good morning. Welcome, everybody, to the Old School Podcast, a podcast about the American education system. But we do dabble in other areas, as we will today. And with me in that endeavor is my very good friend, Dr. Stephen Bourgeois. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Herr Miller. Good to see you and hear you. Your dulcet tones are back, and we were concerned. We, as in everybody who enjoys listening to you. I was afraid you would start to sound like, who knows, Jimmy Cagney or something completely out of left field.
Jimmy Durante.
Well, I was picturing somebody with a higher voice than you, but yeah. But you sound remarkably like Ross Miller. A little quieter, though. I may interject.
Yeah, it is quieter because the voice does not have the oomph in it that it used to. And I, too, am somewhat perplexed, given how much was talked about beforehand about how my voice might change or how my voice might be affected. And it really wasn't affected. And I was kind of bummed out because I was hoping for something maybe a little bit more dignified, maybe a little bit more, a little bit more gravitas attached to it. But it's still that same nasally mid-Atlantic mixed in with a twangy Texas accent.
I was hoping for a British accent, Scottish or something, a little bit more.
Jeffrey, sorry. If you could have any accent other than yours, what do you think you would want?
That's a strange question. I think anything British would be more intelligent. I know you can move there and sort of copy what you hear, but to actually
that's what Madonna has done. So
yeah,
you could do what Madonna did.
I guess so. But to do it real, for real, you need to spend a lot of time there.
True.
But I think something on the British side of the linguistic spectrum would be fun.
So you're telling me that after spending about a week and a half in Australia, you were not left thinking to yourself, man, this could be the accent for me.
That would be pretty natural. I could see that too. I think it's related to British, but I enjoy British films. I enjoy hearing people from the country speak, and I think so. I would, rather than being an aristocrat, I would want to be somebody who is comfortable in the pubs.
A man of the people.
Exactly.
I find if you're a man of the people in one culture, that pretty much translates across the board.
For sure. So where would you go with all this, Herr Miller?
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned the British accent as sounding a bit more intelligent and perhaps carrying with it a little bit more of an intellectual weight. I don't know if the Australian accent has the same effect, simply because I think the Australians, and we could be jaded by the fact that our first exposure to the Australian accent was Crocodile Dundee. So, maybe perhaps perhaps our perspective is a bit skewed.
Yes.
But I like the idea of a Scottish accent. Now I can do, and I used to call friends with like a fake Irish accent. And then I remember early in when I was dating my wife, I would call up as an Irish priest named Father O'Flanagan.
I remember that.
Who was very inappropriate. And so I have dabbled in the Celtic world.
Not availing interpretation of a priest for our listeners, because I think you shared some of those with me, or at least the idea of it, and it was more inappropriate than usual, actually.
It was offensive.
Yeah,
let's not mince words about it.
you're
It was
checking all the
offensive.
boxes on that. Yes.
So no, but I think a Scottish. There's something about a Scottish accent I think I find to be very intriguing. There's again, it's a bit of the man of the people kind of accent compared to the what they call it RP pronunciation and royal pronunciation or something pronunciation. It's like the posh British accent.
Oh,
So kind of like that idea.
okay.
Anyway, so all that to say that the voice is more or less what I went into it with, and I've got it again. So,
No,
and I
we're
apologize.
excited.
I'm also going to be clearing my throat a lot because
A
it's
lot of.
apparently
You,
so.
you know where the mute button is?
Yeah, I know. I gotta get the cursor over there to make sure I can click on it at a moment's notice. But
Yeah, you'll.
anyway,
Um, well, welcome back, Miller. We had a bit of a hiatus here, and I had nothing to say to anybody. I was in silence in honor of you. I didn't say a word.
so you took a vow of silence,
I
huh?
did. I did, and now here we are, right back where we started.
We're back where we started. So yeah, you can follow us on Instagram at the Old School Podcast 2021, and to be able to enjoy our various coasting musings. I encourage you to follow us on Instagram, but also, um, you know, follow us on your various, podcast platforms. Leave a comment, share it with your friends, like it. The things that you do with the things that you like. And so your friends will thank you, your family will thank you, and we also thank you. So there's a
Thank you.
little commercial to
I
start
did.
the episode.
That was the longest plug I've heard on the whole history of the podcast, just because it was slow. At the beginning, it's like this little quick thing, A Heart Solutions, Old School Podcast. Now you've everything is slowed. Like we're having this conversation on a ship.
Well, yeah, or it's like it's being played on a 78 record or something.
Yeah.
The thing is that I can't necessarily equate the slowness to any side effect of the surgery because slowness of speech would seem to be more an intellectual issue than a vocal one. And so maybe they clipped something in the surgery. I'm not sure, but who knows?
It could be the medication or the fact that you continued the anesthetization, if that is a word, with
Mm,
your baseball tour. Uh,
okay. Are you suggesting that baseball has a somnambulistic quality to it that leads one to sleep?
my father had a biology teacher, and they oh my gosh, they called him Ether Ed.
Jesus mighty.
I can hear him laughing now. He can say Ether Ed. Yeah.
That's not nice.
Oh, okay. Well,
But I think everyone can relate to it. I think everyone has had an ether ed teacher at some point in their life. Hopefully, it's not one of us right now. So,
I've heard people fall asleep to this. People are talking about it.
here's what we could do. Whomever of the two of us has the most sleep-inducing voice. There are people that will read stuff and people will download the app and they'll fall asleep to it. Now, most people that do it are people like Matthew McConaughey or what have you, but
There's that
they're
that guy in it for.
well, because he does it. He does it and he owns it. And and so the idea that there actually is a service out there in which people are recorded, people whose voice has a particular effect.
Yeah.
You can make money doing that. You can make money putting people to sleep.
I think that might be your calling, Lord, between the lighthouse idea and putting people to sleep with your words. That they seem to fit together nicely.
Well, better than killing them softly, just
At, at, at least you haven't changed your singing voice and come,
for the 2 people who got that, so
yeah, come back as a tenor or a relatively high baritone.
Well, today, what we're gonna do is we're going to I wanted to kinda talk a little bit about what happened and why we had the hiatus beyond the fact that, well, frankly, we were just kinda tired of each other, and, but, we kinda segue that into the idea of getting old. We are the old school podcast, by the way. And so I think if anyone has the purview to speak on the aging process, it would indeed be us.
We're, we've named it. Are you able to talk about the procedure, not the actual procedure that you remember, but why you were having a procedure? Because people out there are asking, why were you even having a procedure? What's the purpose of that?
I'm not sure how many people were asking, but we thought we'd tell you anyway. But
No, I'm
so
curious too, because I've been asked. I don't know how to give a good answer. My medical summaries are historically short.
and and often found lacking. Is that what?
Somewhat sometimes downright wrong.
So no. So about 4 or 5 months ago, I had my annual checkup, as everyone should do, especially when you're our age. You should be going to the doctor once a year to get a checkup.
Every week, if you really want to be ahead of things.
If that's your thing,
Yeah.
you do it. But no, so I went in for my annual checkup, and the doctor was doing her thing, and she was feeling around my neck, I guess, as doctors do during a checkup,
Mhm.
and she felt a kind of a growth. She felt something, a lump or something like that in my throat, and so she sent me to an endocrine specialist, thyroid specialist, and so apparently, your average nodule on a thyroid is between 1.5 and 2 centimeters. I really don't know what that means, but it's small.
It's
It's small.
nothing to brag about.
Nothing to brag about, and it's not like you're impressing people with a 1.5 centimeter nodule on your thyroid. But I had when they checked on it, and they did all the kind of testing on it. Mine was like well over 5 centimeters. And the problem was that the nodule was starting to grow into my chest. And so the concern that the doctor had was that it would start to impede some of the processes that was happening in the chest area. And he kind of made it clear that I needed to get this taken out sooner rather than later. Now, the rub was that there was also something on my left thyroid, but apparently it is nothing to write home about. And so at present, it's going to be kind of like a kind of we'll monitor the situation kind of a thing. And so, but they needed to get the thyroid out on the right side. Now, what I learned was, and what I was asked 50,000 times when I was in the hospital, is that I was in for a lobectomy.
Hey, what?
Now, a lobectomy, lobectomy,
Okay, wanted to get that.
and it has to do with the lobes, it has to do with the glands or what have you. And so there are different versions of a lobectomy, and I, of course, was having a lobectomy thyroid surgery.
Okay.
And so I had to chat with the doctor a couple weeks prior to the surgery, and I was told that it would be an in and out kind of a thing. You show up in the morning or you show up during the day and you leave by nighttime. And so it didn't require an overnight. And I thought, okay, this is not bad. But it was going to be my first surgery. It was going to be my first time with like a general anesthesia. And I was curious about this. If you talk to people and you ask them, people who have gone through general anesthesia, they say it's the greatest thing. They say it's the best sleep you've ever had. It's a wonderful invention. Um, and and so I was like, all right, so I mean, but I must admit I was nervous, not least of which because someone was about to take a scalpel to my throat. And I'm sure it's not the first time someone has thought about that,
No.
in my career, my life. So, my marriage.
Oh, no.
So, but so first of all, there was that aspect of it. But then two was just the idea. I was worried about my voice, and I was also worried about just what the effect of the anesthesia would be. And so I get there, and the worst part about not the worst part, well, it was kind of a bad part about it, is that I could not eat prior to the surgery. I had to stop eating no later than 11 p.m. the night before. Now, that's no big deal if the surgery is like at 8 a.m. the next morning. But the problem was my surgery did not start till about 4 p.m. And so I'm in the kind of the prep room, and they have a TV. And I swear to God, every commercial on that TV had some kind of food product in it. It was either a commercial about a restaurant, it was either a commercial about nothing that just happened to have a meal attached to the commercial. It was I don't know if it was subliminal. I don't know if this is just the way the
Right?
nurses entertain themselves,
It's
when they're working.
psychological warfare kind of break you down before the surgery. Um,
So anyway, I'm my wife is sitting with me, and I said, "This is ridiculous. That's gotta be the 3rd Whataburger commercial in the last 20 minutes." And so you get all this stuff, and then the nurse is in there taking care of you, and then as you get closer to the time where you actually are having the surgery, then you meet the anesthesiologist, and then you meet the doctor, and they said there was a couple other people coming in. Here's the thing, I don't need a lot of conversation before we do this. The anesthesiologist was a nice guy.
they always are.
I assu
They're,
Yeah,
they're always really nice. They're
they're
relaxed.
super
Yeah,
super nice.
yeah, yeah.
But the problem is that I don't know what they do for a living. I don't really understand it. And so him coming in to tell me about it doesn't really help. I think I think hospitals started doing it because they just wanted, they thought it would put people to ease. But the more people came in to talk to me outside of my doctor, the more I started realizing how much I did not know what was about to happen. And so
You-
I just,
So
I
we're
was
getting grumpy. Were you short with them? Did you send some of them out summarily?
no, 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 no. I was a bit too nervous to be cantankerous, but
Okay, I was
uh,
wondering.
but as soon as they left, I'd turn to my wife and go, "What the hell were they doing in here?" But everyone was like super super nice, and so it's hard to be too upset about it. But then I saw the doctor and I saw everything else, and then the nurse came in and she's waving this little tube in her hand. She goes, "I've got the good stuff." And that's the last thing I remember. I don't remember her giving me the good stuff.
Wow.
I don't remember her telling me about it other than the fact that she had the good stuff in her hand, and I just don't remember. Now, so I had my surgery at this one particular hospital. I don't know if this is a standard practice now among hospitals, but the hospital that I had my surgery in had a rule that family could not be in the room when the person's coming out of anesthesia.
Okay.
Because what happens or what has happened in the past is that family gets a big giggle out of recording their family member coming out of anesthesia and then putting it on YouTube or Instagram or whatever the
Yeah.
case may
Outlawed. Yeah. What
be.
a terrible.
So,
Yeah. Who would even want it?
so, so anyway, so they apparently, and I have a vague, hazy recollection. The nurses told me I fought with them coming out of anesthesia.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what triggered me to start trying to push them away or whatever the case may be. But I was a bit combative.
Or belligerent.
It might surprise people to know, and so there was that. And then when they took me back to the recovery room, and this is when my wife could join me, I was well. First of all, I couldn't talk, and so but I was apparently alert enough to I had asked my wife for pen and paper so I could write stuff. And I don't remember any of this is the problem. So apparently I was alert enough to have these kind of conversations, but I don't really remember it happening. And so, so I'm writing all that
Well,
stuff down.
you've set up this really incredible joke here. What terrible thing you wrote after all of
No,
that.
no. But apparently, my convers what I was starting to write. I asked my wife for a piece of paper and a pen, and I started writing things like, "I have a headache. I can't breathe. It's cold in here." Just anything and everything that apparently was afflicting me.
Yeah.
I would write it down, and then um, halfway through the writing down, I wrote, "Must break free."
Okay, I remember she shared that with me.
So
It was
that
like
Jen
writing
shared it with you?
I think so. It was like writing "help me" on your stomach or something.
Now, Jen thought it was funny. My wife thought it was funny, and it is
Yeah,
probably
I
to
still do
her
to this day.
to her credit, she didn't take it personally. She didn't think I meant break away from her or break away from the life that we have together, but simply I just had this need to break free. I don't remember writing it, but I totally get it. I could totally see myself writing something to that effect. And then slowly as time goes on, I things get clearer and clearer, and then pretty soon by the time you're dismissed, I'm fairly cognizant about everything that's happening. Now, coming out of the hospital, I've got I've got this tape on my throat, and I've got a bulge the size of a softball right in the middle of my throat, and my throat is on fire. My throat is on fire because one, they just slit my throat open. Two, they were just mangling stuff, peeling back the skin, peeling back the throat.
Little
They
too
cut
much detail there, Herr Miller. Always take it
there was the intubation. They had to shove a tube down your throat, and so my throat's on fire. So the first thing we do on the way home, and it's like 9 o'clock at night, is that we stop off at a ice cream place and I get a shake because that was the only thing that was in my head. That was the only thing I ate that day was that shake, and or consumed that day was that shake. The next couple of days, so that was like on a Monday, and so like Tuesday and then the early part of Wednesday, I was taking the good stuff, the good drugs. But by Wednesday, I felt like I can kind of exist without it. The pain did not seem so bad that, I couldn't deal with it with, Tylenol and ibuprofen or something like that. But here's the weirdest thing about that first week. That first week, I've heard friends talk about like an anesthesia hangover. And I was hungover until that weekend.
so you had like
I
a
think it wasn't until Sunday that I really started to kind of come out of it. And so I don't know, you've had surgeries, you've had general anesthesia. Was this your experience that it took that long?
uh, no,
Yeah.
the only I mean, yeah, the it affects other parts, as far as it creates constipation. Let's just come out and say it. That was about the biggest hurdle, as it were.
No,
Um, but why are we talking about this? We do sound old here, Miller.
you do sound
We're
all
gonna
right.
start showing each other scars pretty soon.
You wanna see my lobectomy scar? Um, so but yeah, so I mean, it took about a good week before my head cleared.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because I never had it before and that's just, it's just the way it was, but, uh, I did talk to the doctor later and she said, "Yeah, I mean, that's not unusual," and so but you there was, like, times during that week where I just, like, found myself standing in the middle of a room, not knowing why I was there, not knowing what it was I was wanting to do, and it was just one of those things where you just felt like, "Well, there's Mr. Miller, he's lost it now, he's gone around the bend," he's really left us,
But,
and
well,
so
they continue to give you drugs, though, and opioids, essentially. So I think that general anesthesia combined with the week-long binge on opioids would probably have something to do with that.
Well, that's why I kinda cut the opioids off that by that Wednesday, you know. I figured that I could exist without it, you know, and so and I'm always a bit, um, I'm always a bit leery, as everyone should be, about opioids. One, because let me tell you something. After you get or when you have, like, a kidney stone, which we all know I've had before, you really appreciate the wonders of, like, hydrocodone or something along those lines. Because you talk about sleep. You've never slept a sleep the way, you know, the poets called, sleep little slices of death, and you can that's how deep you sleep when you when you're taking some of that stuff, and so because I could see the attraction of getting hooked on opioids, that's why I don't want any part of it, and that's why Wednesday, I threw out the rest of the opioids because I was like, 1, I didn't need it, and 2, I sure as hell didn't want it around the house.
Threw it out, really? Wow.
So, anyway, so um it's just it was a part of the experience that I've never had before, and it certainly is something that is synonymous with growing old, is the notion of surgeries.
It is, and but everything seems to have worked out, but it doesn't wear off. And I'm not talking about the anesthesia, but the to be in that type of a vulnerable position, people of our self-awareness, it's bound to have a lasting effect.
I wonder though, I mean, do you think there are people that can go through something like that and it doesn't bother them on any level?
It's hard to imagine people's inner dialogue,
Yeah.
on that. But I mean, I think externally people can be really, really tough about it and say, "Oh yeah, I just went to work the next day and it's no big deal." Um, but it has a cumulative effect because as you get older, you're first of all you're losing loved ones and constantly. It just starts to accelerate. Not to mention all the people. Here, Miller and I will text, particularly here, Miller, when someone relatively famous passes away, and we lift a glass to them. And those texts, if you notice, are becoming more frequent. And it's the same thing with relatives. It's the same thing for being cut open or having potentially really bad things happen to you, and I'm working through them. So I think it's all of that is cumulative as opposed to you'd have one surgery. The toll that getting older takes on you it is constant. Um,
Is the most impactful toll that growing old has on you? Is it about your mortality, or is that a bit too esoteric to kind of sit there and deliberate often? Is it a little bit more substantive, a little bit more concrete, um, or does it just depend on how deep the person is inclined to think on any given moment?
yeah, some people are thinking of mortality since they're very young and never stop thinking about it. So it's yeah, I don't really have an answer for that. No,
But I do find it. I have always thought of it as a quality of growing old is the
mm,
degree to which, or the increase of degree in which you think about your mortality. Now, I've never thought about it in quite those terms. I just don't, you know, we're all going to go sometime. It's just a matter of when. So, it could be today, it could be 40 years from now. But, it's a little bit like how when you get on an airplane, you may have like a fear of flying, and I have a slight adult onset fear of flying, but worrying about it doesn't seem to be productive. And so in that regards, I don't think about my mortality, but it is odd to find yourself at the age of people you thought were ancient when you were young.
yeah,
So for example, I'm a few years away from 60. You're a few years away from 90 or something like that.
we're both
So
a few years away from 60 here, Miller. I just
say
happen
again?
we're both a few years away from 60.
Okay.
The other side of you.
But it's like, it's just the notion of me being 60 is asinine to contemplate because again, when, 20-year-old Ross thought someone who was 60 had like one foot in the grave, you know? So now that I can see 60, it seems ridiculous where I find myself today and how differently I view it.
Well, there are so many pithy sayings about getting old, and saying it's better than the alternative, or
Sure.
um, or if somebody passes away, you say, well, at least they didn't suffer, or as the mobsters will say, they make that gesture you just did and say, what are you going to do? Um, but um, the it's the notion of it that it's out there, and the term that my philosopher of choice, Martin Heidegger, uses about death is that it cannot be outstripped. You can't
Mm.
escape it, and it's there. We have a culture, a society that is one of distraction, almost explicitly distractions to keep you from thinking about anything profound like that. Um, and so I
Distractions like work, for instance.
work and media and everything. But I think for at least the artistic side of me, which is I think the most important, um, you know, thinks about mortality, and that's the essence of beauty, is the fact that it's temporary and fading, and so you have to open that window, and that's why I think the artists aren't the happiest lot usually, because they open themselves to that experience.
I wonder too, you know, so I am a man of faith, and the faith tells me that after I leave this molten core, that I will commence a a life in perpetuity. I'm wondering, does that do you think that that belief in any way makes life a little less special? You talked about the idea that one of the things that makes us human is our mortality and the fact that we won't live forever, at least not here. Do you think that that in any way changes the specialness of life if you have this idea that this is just the beginning, this is just the opening act?
I'm pretty good at talking in general terms about these types of things, but the essence of tragedy, if you're in a worldview that doesn't allow for ultimate unending, but to
Yeah.
continue, then tragedy itself is uh, the essence of it disappears.
Mm.
And so I think, so on the artistic side, yeah, there are some things that go away. At the same time, the most profound works of Western culture, I think are the large choral works of people like Bach and Mozart and Beethoven and Brahms, that address these issues head on.
Mhm.
And that's, you can't get any better than that. And that's coming from the perspective that you're talking about.
The idea that the most important thing that we can do as we get older is change how we look at life, because certainly a 20-year-old is going to look at life differently than a 70-year-old. But that, that the beauty of being old is
Mhm.
that it affords you a chance to look at things a little bit differently.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine going back. I mean, it's romantic, so I'd love to go back and relive it. But like,
Ask that girl out or,
yeah, I'm gonna
take
change.
that job or something. Or,
Yeah, we remember our regrets in incredible detail. But we're smarter now, and knowing that if we made that one decision, we wouldn't certainly be talking into these microphones right here. There's, who knows where we would be.
yeah.
So we're a little bit more, I guess you would call it, philosophical about those, but we still remember them all. Um, but I do think I'm hoping that there's going to become later on a little bit more calm and, and acceptance into the choices, because it's real easy to rail against yourself.
I think so. But I think I've already started to get to that calm phase. Now I'm not always calm. I think we can all agree, so
No, you've been gradually civilized. I think particularly your lovely wife has contributed to that. Your daughter a lot. Well, I don't know if I've helped at all. I'm kind of poking at you, but not, trying to get the old Ross back occasionally because it's really fun.
shit. Sorry. Well, I mean, yeah, yeah, you have been known to poke the bear on more than a few occasions. So, uh, mainly, I might say, it's for your own benefit, your own amusement.
It's the whole point of humor, you know that.
Well, it's a pretty amazing kind of period in life,
What?
it's always shocking when I hear about people having surgeries in their 20s because you just don't think about people needing
Mm,
stuff like that in their 20s. If something, especially when I was young, it's always something I associated with old age.
yeah.
And not that this has created like an existential crisis, but it has led me to kind of think about, you know, just what it means to get older and to then start needing stuff like, well, my thyroid's got a lump on it, and it's just, you need to take it out or what have you. And then, just all the things that kind of go with that. And so that's kind of the reason why we talked about it. One, to maybe answer some questions that people had, but then also to kind of frame it in a way that one is probably befitting us, but then two, also kind of emblematic of stuff that's going through my head anyway. And I know stuff that you've thought about too.
Yeah, you're a lot more generous with your experiences than some of us who, who try to stay less than nothing quite often. That's just the way of things.
Wow.
But
It just it's you talked about the fact that you don't feel embarrassed anymore,
mhm.
and I think that that's a product of age because you think, you know, I've I've done worse. There's no reason to be put out by, fill in the blank. So you might as well talk about it sometimes. So, but anyway, so this is a rather short introduction, short at least I guess compared to what we typically do. But my voice is already seemingly starting to crap out on me. So we will call it a day.
A
But
day. This is not a series, is it, Pamela, like they sometimes do? We're doing a series on death and sickness unto death.
well, yeah, we'll do it to death. We'll talk about death. I mean, not so much my surgery, but I mean, certainly we'll talk about death. I imagine in some not so distant episode. But anyway, listen, we're on to Instagram at the Old School Podcast 2021. Make sure you go check that out. Make sure check out some of the earlier episodes. I can't say they're all great, but most of them were pretty good, and so I think you might enjoy it. If you hear something you like, make sure that you like it, that you share it amongst your friends, but also follow us on Instagram, like everything we do. Um, you know, and if you don't like it, just forget we said anything and just carry on with your life. So, with that, I shall say adieu, Herr Doctor Bourgeois.
Herr Miller, adieu, and welcome back.
Thank you.